Caribbean Newsline is brought to you by the Barbados Tourism Marketing, Inc.
The death toll from Hurricane Dorian rises as the extent of the damage unfolds in the Bahamas. Our top story in Caribbean Newsline for Wednesday, September 4th. From the CMC News Center in Bridgetown, I'm Dawn Paris. Good evening. The death toll in the Bahamas from the onslaught of Hurricane Dorian has climbed to 7, and Prime Minister Dr. Hubert Minnis has told Bahamians to expect more fatalities. On Tuesday night, he gave the grim news and an initial report on the devastation caused by the storm after doing an aerial tour of Abaco, which was pummeled by winds of near 185 miles per hour and even higher gusts on Sunday before Dorian continued on a destructive path across Grand Bahama. On Monday, the Prime Minister had said that 5 people were confirmed to have died during the hurricane.
The 25 individuals that were transported to New Providence, 2 has already succumbed. That would take the number of deaths to 7. And again, I want to assure and inform the Bahamian population that we can expect more deaths to be recorded. This is just preliminary information. Let us as a people have compassion for the families of those who lost their lives. Let us pray for them. Please, I ask you to avoid sending or sharing images of those who perished in the storm. Let us act with compassion.
And a senior Bahamian official has said it would be very difficult for many people in Abaco to have survived the sheer volume of water that had flooded the island as a result of Hurricane Dorian. Director of Information Services in the Office of the Prime Minister, Kevin Harris, speaking on the Citadel Radio Network on Wednesday, said he expects the death toll to climb as rescue workers make their way now into areas that had been devastated by the storm that was described as one of the most dangerous in recent times. While the Prime Minister reported on the damage to infrastructure in Abaco, he said parts of the island are decimated.
There's severe damage to homes, businesses, other buildings, and infrastructure. To give you a clearer picture of what was seen while traveling this afternoon, the southern aspect of Abaco has suffered less devastation than the north. The Sandy Port area and progressing north has not suffered as much devastation as was seen in the Marsh Harbor vicinity. The National Airport in Abaco is underwater. The runway is completely flooded. And in fact, the area around the airport now looks like a lake. Marsh Harbor has suffered, I would estimate, in excess of 60% damage to the homes. The mud, as we know, has been completely destroyed or decimated. Progressing further north, the Treasure Key Airport, the runway is still functional. However, the roadway between the main roadway and the airport is flooded and underwater. Cooperstown has suffered some degree of damage, but not nearly as much as is seen in Marsh Harbor. A community just before Cooperstown, but outside of Treasure Key, is cut off from the main population. And in fact, there were at least about 30 individuals who were trapped in this community and were waving yellow flags, sheets, shirts to bring our attention to their survival.
Minister said the priority now is search, rescue and recovery, and he promised that every effort will be made to assist those affected.
We are in the midst of one of the greatest national crises in our country's history. The government will bring to bear every resource of state possible to help the people of Abaco and Grand Bahama or any other island nation that's necessary. No effort or resources will be held back.
Well, that was the Prime Minister reporting on the damage to infrastructure and promises that residents would be reached where they're needed. And the Prime Minister was accompanied on his tour by other government officials and opposition leader Philip Brave Davis. He said an initial assessment would be done of Grand Bahama once the all clear is given by the Met Office. And amid the devastation, Prime Minister Minnis also has to deal with the death of his brother. It's unclear how he died. Meanwhile, following the passage of Dorian, many regional and international countries have started to mobilize help for the Bahamas. Jamaica says it will use the Global Tourism Resilience and Crisis Management Center to mobilize resources locally and internationally to assist those affected. The Ministry of Tourism said it would also be lobbying for further support from the international community at the upcoming United Nations World Tourism Organization Conference in St. Petersburg, Russia from September 9th to 13th. Singer and pop star Barbadian Rihanna also vowed to help the islands after the complete devastation. In 2 tweets on Monday, the Barbadian singer expressed her sympathy for those affected by the storm and said that her non-profit, Clara Lionel Foundation, would be providing aid to the islands. Cuba's government confirmed that it has sent a number of doctors and teachers to help. The Cuban workers will assist local authorities in emergency relief, though they will also stay afterwards to help rebuild the country's medical and education services in the affected areas. The Royal Navy Wildcat has been conducting further reconnaissance flights over the Bahamas to assess damage and provide important intelligence to the Bahamian government. The vessel has delivered its first batch of aid to residents of Greater Abaco. Canada says it will provide 500,000 Canadian dollars in emergency assistance, and the People's Republic of China has donated $20,000 in goods to the National Emergency Management Agency for the hurricane victims. Viewers at home can check locally with credible charities to see how they can assist those affected. And Belize Prime Minister Dean Barrow says the passage of Hurricane Dorian highlights the need to make the Caribbean a climate-resilient region. Barrow says the increasing occurrence of powerful hurricanes is a reminder that this should be given the highest priority. Barrow has written to his Bahamian counterpart expressing condolences for lives lost and the damage caused by the Category 5 hurricane. He added that Belize is prepared to be part of CARICOM's recovery efforts in Grand Bahama and Abaco. A government statement said that Cabinet had agreed to make a contribution of $100,000 to the Bahamas. It also confirmed that Belize Electricity Limited stands ready to make personnel available to assist with the restoration of electricity. And now that Dorian has passed through the region, residents in the Caribbean are keeping an eye on Tropical Storm Gabrielle, which developed early Wednesday morning and has strengthened over the open Atlantic Ocean. The Miami-based National Hurricane Center, NHC, in its latest bulletin at 5 p.m. said Gabrielle was located about 740 miles off the Cabo Verde Islands and was moving towards the northwest at 9 miles per hour. That motion is expected to continue through Saturday, with an increase in forward speed expected late in the week. The NHC said maximum sustained winds are near 50 miles per hour with higher gusts, and little change in strength is forecast during the next 48 hours, but there could be some strengthening over the weekend. There are no watches or warnings in effect, as Tropical Storm Gabrielle currently poses no threat to land. Still to come, concerns over an increase in suspected dengue cases in one Jamaican community. Stay with us.
Dixon, and you're watching Finding Fit, the show I pair up one client with two trainers. Trainer number one.
Oh my gosh.
It's about fitness, comedy.
You know, I can do this all day, you know.
Drama.
In future, we cannot be late.
Inspirational stories, and so much more. You are gonna love it. You can catch Finding Fit prime time this fall on CaribVision.
When we were building in 1984, we decided to get the solar water heater.
We use it up to this morning.
From my home, we get rain 2 days and we still get hot water.
I've had it for 30 years and I have no problems with it up to this day.
All I can say is that anyone who wishes to have a system, try Solar Dynamics.
Solar Dynamics water heater systems are now right through the Caribbean.
Welcome back. The Ministry of Health in Jamaica is monitoring an increase in the number of suspected cases of dengue in one community. But residents of Norwood are criticizing health officials for not doing enough to prevent an outbreak. We get more in this TVJ News report.
Road, Hendon, Norwood, St. James. A health crisis is looming. In recent weeks, there's been an increase in suspected cases of dengue fever.
I have 5 members of my family. My father is on the medical ward, 9th floor at hospital. My grandson is on the pediatric ward, and my 2 nieces, 1 nephew.
This resident says her son was recently diagnosed. This one was on her way to the hospital to visit her 1-year-old granddaughter, who also tested positive for dengue, while this resident had her grandson on hand, his back covered in rash. She told us he's recovering. She's giving thanks because there have been casualties.
The children, them what died, they already buried about 2 to 3 weeks, about 3 months roughly. It's going on. And more than 1 people, they find out they have the dengue. The lady in our shop was afraid to show herself of 2 of the dengue trace when she go do the test. 1 lady, come here, my girl, have female granddaughter in the hospital right now with the dengue. So, it's all about up over now, all about. We just need a little help. We need some assistance to see what they can do with the mosquito.
St. James Medical Officer Dr. Marcia Johnson Campbell, in responding to queries from TVJ News, confirmed the increase in suspected cases of dengue. However, the numbers were not readily available. She says efforts have been intensified in the area since June to include educational sessions. Fogging was done in June and July, and warning letters have been issued to residents to get rid of items that breed mosquitoes. We were also informed that a team of 11 task workers have been assigned to the area to do daily inspection of premises to search out and destroy breeding sites.
Haiti's Prime Minister Fritz William Michel is expected to make his policy statement to the Senate on Thursday after the Chamber of Deputies gave him the green light on Tuesday. When the vote was taken late Tuesday, 76 deputies voted for Prime Minister Michel's policy, 3 abstained and none voted against. Earlier, opposition deputies had continued their strategy of ransacking the chamber to prevent legislators from hearing Prime Minister Michel's statement. They knocked over chairs, desks, and other furniture in the meeting room, as well as poured a thick liquid on the seat reserved for the chairman of the meeting, Gary Bordeaux, who is also president of the lower house. Despite the disruption, the Chamber of Deputies heard the presentation of Michel, who was accompanied by members of his cabinet. Following the presentation, Michel received the backing of the deputies and will be invited with his cabinet to the Senate to make a similar presentation on Thursday. Michel, a former executive in the Ministry of Economy and Finance, is Haiti's 4th prime minister since President Jovenel Moïse became head of state in 2017. Grenada's Prime Minister addresses concerns about project management in the region, and egg farmers in Jamaica want government to scrap the general consumption tax. Michael Williams has the details in this week's Newsline Business.
Grenada's Prime Minister Dr. Keith Mitchell says there is need for development of human capital and transformational leadership to improve the rate of project implementation in the Caribbean. Mitchell was addressing a regional conference of the Caribbean Development Bank on project cycle management. He told the gathering there is also need to bridge competency gaps in the public service.
We must therefore focus on improving human and institutional capacity, efficiency and service delivery to revolutionize the way we work and conduct our business. It follows, therefore, that there must be a radical shift in the culture of the public service across the region to better support the results and to drive performance.
The Eastern Caribbean Central Bank will address issues of economic growth and poverty and inequality when it holds its 51st Annual Monetary Studies Conference in November. It will be held in partnership with the Trinidad-based Caribbean Economic Research Team. Discussions will also address issues of climate change, transportation, trade, investment, and competitiveness. Egg farmers in Jamaica are calling on government to remove the general consumption tax on eggs. President of the Egg Farmers Association, Roy Baker, says consumers can no longer afford to buy the product.
16.5% tax is on eggs. It is the only agricultural product in Jamaica and with its taxes. And it is crippling the growth of the industry.
Baker says the tax is unfair and he wants eggs to be treated like any other agricultural produce, which is not taxed.
Farmers' markup don't come close to 16.5%. I can tell you, as a farming product, we don't get 16.5%. So if we could have GCT removed, consumer would be able to buy more eggs and the industry would grow substantially. And this is what we've been asking for ever since this thing came on. You know, and it's like the proverbial rope around our neck, stifling the growth of the industry. So we're making a very strong appeal for that.
Mary-Claire Williams, Newsline Business.
Ahead in sport, the CPL to revert to an August start date next year. The details after the break.
when you think of what we went through with Hurricane Irma, you had to be able to recognize what are the things we need to do to cope with the aftermath. The psychological trauma, to me, is probably the most telling on a lot of people.
Preparedness is the key. So when people are prepared, when people have what their resources in terms of how they can cope with the disaster, they're better able to be able to return to their normal life. They're better able to make decisions that are informed for themselves and for their family, and then for their community. Be ready. Look, listen, and link.
Caribbean Passport, highlights of a memorable CariFesta 14 in Port of Spain, Trinidad and Tobago. The creativity of the Caribbean and all that the region has to offer was on full display. Celebrate our Festival of Arts as we strengthen the bond between us on Caribbean Passport, the CariFesta edition, right here on this station.
As action in the Caribbean Premier League gets underway Wednesday evening, news has come that organizers have struck an agreement with Cricket West Indies that will see the popular domestic T20 tournament revert to the August start date from next year. The 8th edition of the tournament will be played from August 19th to September 26th, ensuring the availability of all West Indies contracted players. This year's tournament was initially carded for August 21st to September 27th, but had to be pushed back to accommodate India's tour of the Caribbean, which concluded on Monday. The campaign is bowling off for Wednesday in Port of Spain and will run until October 12th. CWI Chief Executive Johnny Graves said it would be even more critical that all marquee West Indies players are available for the 2020 tournament, especially with the Caribbean side defending their T20 World Cup title in Australia next year. West Indies' woes in the just concluded series against India have not affected skipper Jason Holder's fortunes in the ICC Test rankings. The 27-year-old leapt 7 places to 4th in the latest bowling rankings released on Tuesday, following his 5-wicket haul in the first innings of the second Test against India at Sabina Park in Jamaica. He ended the game with 6 wickets, but West Indies went down by 257 runs on Monday's 4th day, following another weak batting display. Holder has been the most consistent West Indies cricketer in the longest format over the last 20 months, taking 44 wickets and gathering 669 runs at an average of 44. Australian Steve Smith has replaced Virat Kohli as the world's #1 batsman, while Australian pacer Pat Cummins remains the #1 bowler. Meanwhile, new ball seamer Kemar Roach has dropped 1 place to 9th in the bowling rankings, while speedster Shannon Gabriel has slipped to 19th. He was the only other West Indies player in the top 20. Switching sports now, a day after the top brass of the Jamaica Football Federation rubbished claims of a non-payment of salaries to the Reggae Girls, 2 members of the senior squad have hit back. In this report from TVJ's Jordan Fort, forward Khadija Shaw contends that while the JFF did make payment to players, they still reneged on the original agreement.
Reggae Girls striker Khadija Shaw and other members of Jamaica's historic Women's World Cup qualifying team had several persons reacting to social media posts made on Monday as they threatened to withdraw their services if they didn't receive payments owed to them by the JFF. JFF General Secretary Dalton Wint then responded, telling TVJ Sports on Monday that a portion of the $150,000 owed for their monthly payment was paid over and should be received by Wednesday. But Shaw says even if that is the case, it would still be a breach of the original agreement.
They failed, as I said, to honor their obligations, which was to pay us between the month of January to August. So with that saying, even if they decide to pay us 50%, it's not 100%.
According to the JFF president, Michael Ricketts, the remaining monies owed will be paid to players who are eligible and not part of the U.S. collegiate system by the first week of October, once the federation receives money from FIFA. But Shaw also rubbished that explanation.
Their excuse was that they're waiting on FIFA to give them the World Cup money. But our payment stipend is not dependent on the receipt of the prize money by the JFF.
And goalkeeper Nicole McClure, speaking on Monday's edition of Sports Grill on Hits 92 FM, has concurred with Shaw and added that the players will not take the field during the Olympic qualifiers with half of the money still owed.
We were legally promised X amount, not half of X amount, and we've been going back and forth with these people for how many years now, and we finally made a big step by coming to a legal agreement. So we figured this could protect us as players and keep the JFF honest. But right now, they're not being honest, and now to give us the hush-hush money, the 50%, is not right.
Star players from USA's World Cup winning team, Megan Rapinoe, Alex Morgan and Hope Solo, have also shared the posts in a show of support to the Reggae Girls players. The Olympic qualifiers will run from September 30 to October 8.
To track and field now, Trinidad and Tobago is celebrating with the country's newest medalists who are back from the just concluded Pan American Games in Peru. TV6's Sergio Dufour reports.
Ranked 12th on the final medal table standings, they came back with 2 gold, 1 silver and a bronze medal from Peru. Hakeem Stewart was phenomenal, breaking a world record and bringing back the gold medal in the men's discus throw. He said team support got him through.
I'd like to say a special comment to Chantal Lentz, Carlos Green, Dennis LaRose and all the coaching staff for making it a successful meet for us. And I am happy to make more teams with you all because you make me feel like family, we feel equal, we feel comfortable around each other, and look forward to great things in Dubai.
On the track, it was all Nyosha Kane bringing back a gold and a bronze medal.
Coming home with the gold medal in the 100 meters, first time, and also medaling first time in 200 meters, was a very great experience to me. Knowing that this year would have been a challenging year, trying to find coaching, trying to do a lot of stuff just to prepare for this year and Tokyo 2020. This trip was really a great trip. Everyone was supportive. I would really love to thank, just the athletes.
We will follow up on this story to determine if the efforts of these para-athletes will lead to possible rewards.
And that's the sport. We'll be right back.
Caribbean Newsline is brought to you by the Barbados Tourism Marketing Inc.
When we were building in 1984, we decided to get the solar water heater.
We use it up to this morning. From my home, we get rain 2 days and I still get hot water.
I've had it for 30 years and I have no problems with it up to this day.
All I can say is that anyone who wishes to have a system, try solar dynamics.
Solar dynamics, water heater systems are now right through the Caribbean.
A recap of the day's major developments. The death toll from Hurricane Dorian in the Bahamas rises to 7, and the Prime Minister says residents should prepare for a further increase in coming days. And in sport, Caribbean Premier League organizers strike a deal with Cricket West Indies to return the T20 tournament to an August start date next year. And that's Caribbean Newsline. For news and sport around the clock, subscribe to CanadaNews.com. For more of our programming, log on to CaribVision.tv and check out our YouTube channel. We'll be back here again tomorrow. From all of us at CMC News, thank you for watching and have a good night. But stay tuned to CaribVision as we bring you extended Hurricane Dorian coverage right after Caribbean Newsline.
You are watching CaribVision.